After years in the fantasy wilderness, the Washington Commanders are exciting again for fantasy, especially with the addition of a top possibility when it comes to our fantasy quarterbacks. We shall start straight away at quarterback as we go through the Washington Commanders for our redraft leagues, and a player who met expectations and beyond in his rookie year, Mr. Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, that's right. Last year's rookie superstar enters his sophomore season. The difference is he's got even more expectation on his shoulders this season. As Commanders fans look for him to kick on from his rookie season. He did put up some huge numbers last season, ended up as QB5, ahead of some really illustrious company. I mean, his passing stats, they were impressive, but it's his rushing stats that really interest fantasy managers. 891 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns in 2024. Unsurprisingly, that was a rookie record. Concern last year was that he was sacked. I think it was the 6th most in the league, 47 sacks last season. But the Commanders traded for Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, which is one hell of an upgrade for Daniels. So I think that could make him even more threatening with a bit more time to get rid of the ball. He's had a slight upgrade in his weapons. We'll talk about that later. And with that improved O-line, it's difficult to see how he isn't a top 5 quarterback yet again. I do think QB3, which is currently where he's being drafted, is his absolute ceiling, though. He's not in that top tier of quarterbacks where Allen and Lamar sit alone. And I've seen him in recent weeks being drafted ahead of them in some best ball drafts, which is just bonkers. It's Allen, Lamar, and then you can make a case for a few others after those two. But yeah, I think Daniels is on course for another great season, and I would disagree with your projection of him mirroring his QB5 finish of last year.
Yeah, he sits in that second tier of quarterbacks for me, which is Burrow, Ertz, and Daniels. And I could see a rotation of any of those three. I think we've said in our Eagles show, though, I would just put my money on Ertz being the person more likely to be QB3. And then I think I'll put Joey B just above that as well. It pains me to say it, Ed, but I will put Joey B just above there as well.
Oh, thanks.
We've also got the thing that we see time and time again, which is after a year of NFL teams seeing what they are actually dealing with, they're going to be more prepared for him now. I don't think he's
DJ Stroud, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to disappear in that way because his rushing upside should kind of offset that. But 75 total QB scrambles last year was the most in the modern era. He's gets the ball out quickly as well. He's clearly a very, very talented quarterback. Just for me, I'm not going to take him in round 3 where he's going at the moment, so I'm not going to get him. If he was there in the middle of round 4, late round 4, absolutely, I'd probably struggle not to pull the trigger on him. But as we said in other shows, that's just how we draft quarterbacks, and I'm never going to get Jayden Daniels because I'm never taking a quarterback there unless I decide to try something different in a redraft league that I'm not as fussed about.
Agreed. I'll never get Daniels, but I think when we're talking about, I know we're talking about fantasy NFL, but from real life NFL perspective, genuinely exciting player. And I think it's really interesting to see how the Commanders, if they can, back up what was a huge season for them last year after being such also-rans.
I did in one Dynasty League last year, Superflex League that we're both in, where I had Lamar and I also had Jalen Hurts. I decided to pick up Jayden Daniels just because I was quite happy elsewhere as well. That is possibly my favourite quarterback room in any league I have.
Who do you think on the bench? That's difficult, isn't it?
It's pretty awful elsewhere, but I'm quite happy. I could trade one of them and fix that. I just like having disposal, just like being greedy. Moving on to running back then, and a player that I find really difficult to make a decision on either way. So I'm hoping, Ed, you're going to give me some clinical analysis that makes my mind up for me now when we move on to Mr. Brian Robinson Jr.
No, I'm sorry. He is someone I have really struggled with as well. It's contract year for Robinson, so that's something to throw into the mix. Does that mean big numbers as he's looking to earn that big money deal? So that's something to think about. I mean, he's been solid over the last couple of years. RB29 last year, RB21 the year before, without really emerging as kind of a pure RB1. It was a rush-heavy offense for the Commanders last season. So if that continues under Cliff Kingsbury, Robinson's want to benefit from that. So we'll wait and see how the Commanders play this year. He's a more than competent pass catcher, so that's going to boost his PPR numbers with those receptions, although his receptions were down last year on the previous year. Like Daniels, he's going to benefit from that improved O-line. Not only have they traded for Tunsil, they also used their first round pick to draft a new right tackle. So that should be a significant upgrade, which Robinson will benefit from. He's going off the board at RB30, which seems about right. I think he's someone who I just can't see doing much better than that. I think RB25 is generous. And he's someone that quite often I'll see in drafts and I do like and ah over him, thinking, oh, there's great value there. But then you look into the stats and think, I don't know. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't give you any clarity. He's someone that I really struggle with.
I think the one positive aspect of that is that where he's going towards middle to late round 7, you don't necessarily need to be sure, do you? I guess if he's going to be in your flex spot anyway, he's potentially got a higher ceiling than most. The problem is who he's got behind him could have a spike week any given moment. The fact he's got Jayden Daniels as well, taking a lot of that. Last year, looking at Lamar Jackson, turn out good rushing numbers as well, while Derrick Henry was phenomenal. That works when you're Derrick Henry. It doesn't work when you're Brian Robinson. That does make it a tough situation for him. But yeah, round 7, I think there's certainly be a case made for him. He's not the name that you want to be picking, is he? But he's a name that might be do you know what? Let's do the right thing. Let's get a steady trickle of points each year. 8 top 24 finishes for a player you're going to have in your flex spot. It's not bad, is it?
Exactly right. He is going to be a flex spot. If he's your RB1 or RB2, you've gone very heavy wide receiver, haven't you? So, yeah. As a flex player, he probably will get you value. But as you allude to, there is competition there from Austin Ekeler, back for his second season in Washington after a fairly solid, if unspectacular, first season with the Commanders last year. He did get the work in a rush-heavy offense. But fumbles continue to be an issue for Ekeler. It's plagued him throughout his career, and that affects his kind of rushing numbers. But of course, he will always have decent fantasy upside because of his prowess in the receiving game. One example last year, it was week 11, 8 of 9 receptions for 80 yards. That was against the Eagles, so a fairly formidable defense. So he can get you those receiving numbers. Someone who's a possibly decent flex option some weeks in what is probably going to be a productive offense again. But it's that reliability with Ekeler. He's very difficult to predict when he's going to have those good weeks. So that's why he's going undrafted. He's going or late. He's going late in drafts. He's going off the board as RB48.
And for me, the reason that's why I was a weekly flex option rather than a weekly flex play. He's not a guarantee plug and play and leave him in there always. But for me, it comes down to value again. Currently going late round 12. Who else late round 12 potentially could turn in a top 12 week for you at their position if all falls right? Austin Ekeler does still have that. The probability of it happening is far lower than it's ever been and will continue to be, but he also benefits from the improved O-line. He also benefits from, I think there was a lot of talk about his injuries last offseason. He's a year removed from those, hopefully. So, yeah, there are worse players you could take late round 12, but I suppose when it's been a name we have mentioned in the upper echelons of fantasy for so long, it just feels like he's doing badly when actually he's doing an all right job for where you're drafting him.
He will do you a job some weeks. But as I said, it's just that unpredictability that kind of drops him into that flex option, as you've said.
Before we move on to wide receiver, please do take a moment to give us a subscribe, a like and a share, and go and check out one of the other 31 deep dive shows as we profile all 32 NFL teams through the offseason to prepare for your redraft drafts. Moving on to wide receiver, and a player that I think I am far lower on than consensus. So I am in a player we've not spoken about a huge amount. So I'm interested to see what your outlook for this season is for Scary Terry.
Yeah, I mean, not everything is rosy in the Commander's garden. As their star receiver requested a trade after not getting the contract that he thinks he's earned and deserves. I mean, my feeling is, and from what I've read, this probably will get resolved in time for week one. They will come to some sort of agreement, mainly because the Commanders can't really afford to let him go. So expect a middle ground to be found. So let's talk about him as if he is suiting up week one with a contract in the bag. It was a breakout 2024 for him last year. He finally got that decent quarterback to receive the ball from. 117 targets was lower than previous seasons, but his 13 touchdowns were by far and away his biggest number in his career. That will always raise the issue of regression, and it's going to bring that into the equation. Will he do better than 13 targets from 82 receptions? Probably not. So there will be some sort of regression in the touchdowns. But his ADP is wide receiver 16, which looks like a big drop-off after finishing as wide receiver 7. But we talked about the issue at receiver last year, a number of receivers underperforming, and that he's going to have some more competition this year. So I'm not quite as low on him as you are. I think you could do a lot worse for a wide receiver 2. And I think wide receiver 16 it is fair. Obviously, keep an eye on that contract situation. But if that gets resolved, I think McLaurin should have another solid season.
Yeah, the touchdown regression for me, the fact that he had relatively low yardage for a top 10 wide receiver as well last year, only just over 1,000 yards. That's a bit of a concern to me. The red zone targets, he had 15 with 10 red zone touchdowns. Are they going to be throwing the ball in the red zone as much with that improved O-line and with different rushing options at their disposal as well? That's why I've got a potential bust pick for me. Am I saying he's going to be awful this year? No, not at all. I just feel that there is a slightly bigger risk attached to Terry McLaurin than maybe consensus feels at the minute. But I think he's a player that over the last couple of years, I've always been a lot lower on than out of us as well. So maybe that's a little bit of my kind of
you seem to be
bias
warming
as
to
well.
him in the second half of last year.
It was hard not to. He was doing a really good job, wasn't he? Constantly, and the Commanders are more likable as now, which makes that easier. Yeah, I just think there's a health warning attached to drafting Terry McLaurin in round 3 of your redraft leagues this year for me. Just behind him, a new name in town.
Yeah, well, if we're talking about bust picks, let's go to one. Deebo was very much in the conversation as fancy bust of last year. He endured an absolutely awful final season in San Francisco. Wide receiver 3, let's not forget, back in 2021. Wide receiver 44 last year, as he had career lows for yards per game and yards per carry. And there was, he didn't miss many games. I mean, is the fresh start in Washington what he needs, or is his age and physical playing style catching up with him? You have to ask the question: is Deebo done? Has the best of him long gone? He just looked last year. He just looked bashed up and slower, like half a yard slower everywhere. And he appeared to be playing through injuries. But when isn't he? I think because of the way he plays, there's always going to be something wrong with him. You'd expect him to get targets in this offense, but I don't see him being a deep threat based on him losing some speed last season and his age, as I've said. I'm just really struggling to get excited about Deebo. I'm interested to see how he does, but from a fancy perspective, I am very, very wary. Wide receiver 40 is where he's going off the board. That probably seems about right. And he might have some good flex weeks, but as an elite talent, Deebo is definitely done.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think his ADP is probably fair because there is as much as there's a route to him doing nothing this year, there's a route to him being a fairly steady producer as well in that Cliff Kingsbury offense. Looking at his ADP of early round 8, though, I don't imagine that is where I'm going to be comfortable picking him up, to be honest. I think the way that I draft, that you draft, we're looking at our quarterbacks tight ends around there because we've already stocked up on our wide receiver options. So I don't see me getting much of him. I do feel we might well be talking about him as being a decent value DFS pick at certain points. I do feel he's going to have a couple of weeks where he absolutely does you a really good job. It's the question marks of last season and the moving into a new offense as well, making difficult for me to be able to sell to myself, which once again, a player that we've enjoyed great success from over the years is a shame to see, but those years are behind him. One thing in his favour is possibly the fact that there's hardly elite options knocking on the door, but there are players that I do think we could find ourselves talking about at certain points of the season.
Yeah, there is something behind him. I mean, Luke McCaffrey, he looked promising early in his rookie season, but then targets and snaps dried up, to be honest. And the arrival of Deebo is a problem for him. I think McCaffrey's going to have to work hard for a roster spot. KJ Osborn, another player who struggled to make an impact last season. Remember, he started last season at the Patriots, who waived him and then ended up at the Commanders. Did little for either, to be honest. Out of the three, Noah Brown is probably the most interesting. He'll hopefully wide receiver 3 behind Deebo McLaurin. Only 3 double-figure scores last year, and he missed the last 4 games of the season with a kidney injury. So someone who might have the odd value week, Noah Brown, but I don't think that there's much value in any of these 3, to be honest.
And then the other pass catcher on the Commanders' offense at tight end, Mr. Zach Ertz, to finish off the Commanders' head.
Yeah, Zach Ertz. I mean, a lot of people questioned whether he was finished, but he had a big bounce back season in 2024. Finished up as tight end 7 after a couple of really injury ravaged seasons. I think the big plus for him last year was that he played every single game. And is he the number 2 target for Daniels after McLaurin? I think you've got to put him in that kind of category. He was last season, and it remains to be seen how the arrival of Deebo impacts this. I think last season's stat line, 66 catches, 654 yards, 7 touchdowns. I think that's something that he's more than capable of repeating this year. Yes, age is an issue. He's 34, but he's currently going off the board as tight end 18. So he's going undrafted, which to me, if I'm looking to pinch a tight end late in a draft, I'd be more than happy to take Zach Ertz. And I think tight end 18, doesn't really do him justice. Is he going to be a top 5 tight end? No. Is he in the kind of elite numbers? Of course he's not. But yeah, you're suggesting he's a streamable tight end, and he will, what we will want to keep a very close eye on because he could have a really good run of games.
Yeah, so looking last year at 9 games over 10 points for a tight end you're taking. So last year, tight end 33. That is really, really good return to have any form of consistency. If you're taking a later tight end of getting over 10 points, I'm pretty happy with that. I think we can sometimes get bogged down with wanting to look at Brock Bowers, Mark Andrews at his best, George Kittle numbers. I think that's what we want from a tight end, but there aren't many tight ends that produce like that. If you're leaving your tight end late and you're getting over 10 points consistently, you've done pretty well with your pickup there. And if you can get that moving, streaming off your bench or picking up off waivers, I think you're quite happy. And so when we look at our roster construction, it is important to think that not every player on a league-winning roster is an elite superstar. Sometimes just players that get you some numbers done, you can plug them in and move on, isn't it?
Indeed. I think... you've got to, if you want one of those kind of almost cheat code tight ends, you've got to invest huge draft capital and miss out on a top receiver or a running back. And if you're not doing that, which is most people in your league, then you're going to have to settle for someone like Zach Ertz who will do you a job.
Finally, then, I think we're both fairly settled that the Eagles are the team to beat yet again in the division. But what's your outlook for the Commanders this year?
Well, after last season, I think, it'll be disappointing for them if they don't make the playoffs again. So that's what they're going to be aiming for. And I think they'll be aiming to snap at the heels of the Eagles and potentially win the division. I do think the upgrade at O-line is an important one. Laramie Tunsil is a phenomenal player, and that is a huge upgrade. So yeah, I think the Commanders, I enjoyed watching them last season. I think a lot of people have warmed to them with Jayden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. So yeah, a playoff team again. Have they got it in them to go all the way? Possibly not. But yeah, I'm going to enjoy watching them again.
Well, Ed, that is the final show in our 32 Steep Dive series, going through every single NFL team ready for our redraft drafts. If you've not seen all of the other shows yet, why not? Why have you not watched all of them in order daily? It makes absolutely no sense to us. But if this is your first show, you only had a handful, please do now give us a subscribe, give us a like, and give us a share, and then go and check out one of the other 31 shows. I think after that, Ed, all that is left for us to say is the best of luck to everybody watching who's watched us through the off season. Or if your first show, welcome aboard. Go and check out the others. But all the best in your redraft drafts and heading into the season. We'll be back in season with some fantastic shows as well, if we do say so ourselves, and a couple of bits planned just before the season kicks off. But for the final time in the Deep Dive series, it is bada bing, bada bye. And Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to Pestell and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.